I'm going to be reading the Communist newspaper, the voice of the Revolutionary Communists of America. And I'm going to start by going to the back, and I will read the program for revolution of the Revolutionary Communists of America. The Revolutionary Communists of America is a party of class fighters committed to the complete overthrow of capitalism. We fight to build a revolutionary leadership and to establish a workers' government that can mobilize the working class to tackle the capitalist roots of war, inequality, oppression, and climate catastrophe. We are proud members of the Revolutionary Communist International, which is active in dozens of countries worldwide. First point, rebuild the labor movement through class struggle. Only class struggle unionism, which starts from the premise that our interests and the bosses are diametrically opposed, can reverse decades of decline and put labor back on the offensive. The best way to prepare for an all-out general strike is to successfully organize millions of workers in a wave of industrial strikes, demonstrating the colossal power of the working class in action. However, trade union organization and struggle are not enough. Workers need a class-independent political expression to coordinate their common struggle against the capitalist class as a whole. The next point, down with the capitalist politicians, build a communist party. Communists stand for uncompromising class independence and reject liberalism and Trumpism as two sides of the same capitalist coin. To combat the distorted polarization of the culture war, we stand for class polarization and the class war. The only way out of the impasse is a workers' government and a democratically planned economy that will usher in a system of workers' democracy based on the direct participation of the masses in government and the economy. To achieve this, the working class needs a revolutionary party armed with Marxist theory to fight the capitalists in every workplace and campus, on the streets, and at the ballot box. Quality jobs, housing, healthcare, and education for all. Socialism is not only a good idea, it is objectively possible now, not in the distant future. Yet millions suffer from hunger, homelessness, unemployment, and disease. The socialist revolution will resolve this contradiction through social ownership, production, and distribution of society's collective wealth. For the first time in history, all humans will enjoy true equality of life, not mere formal equality before the law. Nationalize the major banks and monopolies. To break with irrational chaos of the capitalist free market, a workers' government would expropriate the essential levers of the economy to be run under democratic workers' control and management, and integrate it into a socialist plan of production to meet society's needs. Jobs. We fight for full-time job or place in education for all. A workers' government would launch an extensive program of useful public works to create millions of quality jobs and upgrade public infrastructure, transportation, and housing, with accommodations for those with disabilities. A 20-hour work week and a national minimum wage of $5,000 per month would allow everyone to work while allowing plenty of time for leisure and education. Housing. Evictions would be a thing of the past. A workers' government would establish a socialized plan for safe, quality housing for all, with rent fixed at no more than 10% of wages. Healthcare. Capitalist healthcare is a nightmare. Millions have no access, and those who do must pay exorbitant amounts for subpar care. We fight for a socialized healthcare system free at the point of service. Education. Under capitalism, most children receive only the minimum education needed to turn them into productive workers. Communists fight for the best possible education for all. Tuition and fees would be abolished, student debt would be written off, and after-school programs and community centers would be robustly funded to engage the youth and enhance the development beyond the classroom. An injury to one is an injury to all. The working class makes up the overwhelming majority of society. The only way they can keep us from turning against them is by turning us against each other. Fight division with class struggle and unity. Racism, sexism, transphobia, and xenophobia are poison in the workers' movement and must be driven out. A workers' government would end mass incarceration and release all political prisoners. Border walls, deportation centers, and surveillance would be relics of the capitalist past. Fight women's oppression. We stand unconditionally for full reproductive rights, up to and including abortion. Parenthood would be radically transformed with generous parental leave and accessible full-time childcare facilities. Domestic work would be socialized through an extensive public network of quality, affordable restaurants, laundry, and other socialized services. Defend our rights. Bourgeois democracy is in crisis, and our civil rights and liberties are under constant attack. We defend basic freedoms, such as assembly and expression, not as ends in themselves, but as means for broadening the class struggle and preparing for power. Combat the climate crisis with a socialist planned economy. A workers' government would immediately begin to transition to clean energy by retooling the international economy. Displaced workers would receive paid retraining and guaranteed employment, with no reduction in wages or benefits. Billions would be invested to develop mitigation strategies and new production techniques. On this basis, a massive expansion of the world economy could be realized in complete harmony with the environment. Workers of the world unite. We oppose imperialist intervention anywhere. No war but the class war. A workers' government would abolish all capitalist trade and bankers' agreements and write off the debts imposed by imperialism. It would slash the military budget and invest in social needs. In unity with our class sisters and brothers worldwide, our historic mission is to overthrow global capitalism, imperialism, and landlordism, and to build a world socialist federation based on genuine equality, cooperation, and solidarity. Read our full program online at communistusa.org/program. And again, this is the summary of the program of the Revolutionary Communists of America. So I'll go back to the first page. The headline is, "Sick of Capitalism? Join your party." Gen Z wants revolution. Time to organize. The right-wing Cato Institute is panicking about the results of their recent poll on attitudes towards socialism and communism in America. To their horror, they found that 62% of Americans under 30 say they have a favorable view of socialism, while 34% say the same about communism. As the think tank summarized in an article titled, "Young Americans Like Socialism Too Much," quote, "In the March 2025 survey, Cato/YouGov asked a national sample of 2,000 Americans aged 18 and older about U.S. fiscal policy, including the following: do you have a favorable or unfavorable view of socialism? And do you have a favorable or unfavorable view of communism? A total of 43% said they have a favorable view of socialism, and for those aged 18 to 29, 62% said favorable. For communism, a total of 14% said they have a favorable view. However, in the 18 to 29 group, 34% said favorable. That's about 18 million people. The findings are estimates. There are an estimated 52 million Americans aged 18 to 29, so 34% is 17.68 million. 62% of that age group is roughly 32 million people. End quote. These self-described socialists and communists may not have absolute clarity as to what those terms mean, Cato says. But what unites them is a disdain for capitalism, quote unquote. We in the Revolutionary Communists of America can verify the results of this poll. Millions of young people have moved far to the left in recent years. Every day while building the party, we encounter more people who have been driven by revolutionary conclusions, by the catastrophic impact of capitalism on every aspect of our lives. World of crisis. The spring 2025 Harvard Youth Poll found that just 15% of young people think that this country is, quote, headed in the right direction. It's not hard to see why. Gen Z, born between 1997 and 2012, has known nothing but crisis, instability, and societal decline. Our earliest memories are colored by the 2008 financial crisis and its aftermath, which was the deepest crisis in capitalism's history since the Great Depression. The decade and a half since then has been characterized by the intensifying climate crisis, wars in Ukraine and the Middle East, and the most unstable job market in generations. For many, an intense dislike for the capitalist system was transformed into outright hatred upon witnessing Israel's genocidal war against Gaza, which has been directly aided and abetted by Joe Biden and Donald Trump alike. It is a fact that the most heinous crimes against humanity in our lifetime have been directly enabled by the U.S. government, with 68% of Israeli arms imports coming from the United States. As Karl Marx explained long ago, conditions determine consciousness. Back when the capitalist system was still playing a relatively progressive role by raising living standards and providing some semblance of stability, most people accepted the status quo. But having grown up in an era of crisis, Gen Z has drawn the conclusion that we need a new system altogether. We need a socialist revolution. Millions turning to communist ideas. Now is the time to get organized. Economic decline. Faced with all of this interest in socialism and communism, Cato is anxious to teach young people about the value of free markets. The answer to this crisis is leftward youth radicalization. In their view, is education from libertarian types who, quote, understand the foundations of liberty. They are welcome to try, but life is the greatest teacher of all. An experience of life under the free market system does not inspire much confidence among young people. Just look at the economic prospects facing young people. Last year, the Washington Post published an article titled, "Millennials Had It Bad Financially, but Gen Z workers are paying 31% more for housing than their millennial counterparts were a decade ago, 46 more on health insurance." You guys have health insurance? And over 100% more on car insurance, after adjusting for inflation. Meanwhile, inflation adjusting earnings for Gen Z workers have risen by just 26%. Currently, 6.6% of recent college graduates are unemployed, higher than the national average of 4%. And both figures conceal the massive number of underemployed workers in this country. Meanwhile, as of March, over 40% of recent college grads are working jobs that don't typically require a college degree. In decades past, young people were told that if they obtain a college degree in a white-collar job, they'd be set for a lifetime of financial security. This can no longer be relied upon. The business press predicts that subpar economic growth rates and the introduction of artificial intelligence are setting the stage for a once-in-a-generation reduction in white-collar jobs. Already, publicly traded companies have 3.5% of their white-collar workforces over the last 3 years, and this is just the beginning. The CEO of Ford recently predicted artificial intelligence is going to replace literally half of all white-collar workers in the U.S. AI will leave a lot of white-collar people behind. Under a rational system, a socialist planned economy, this technology would be harnessed to raise living standards and reduce working hours for everyone. But under capitalism, it will simply mean increased unemployment and desperation. The bottom line is that young people have no confidence that they can count on personal and financial stability in the future. The April 2025 Times Siena poll asked registered voters, thinking about the nation's economy, how would you rate economic conditions today? It's no wonder that among 18 to 29-year-olds, precisely 0 said excellent. Shift to the right? Like most demographics, Gen Z saw an electoral shift towards Trump in November 2024, with 40% of 18 to 29-year-olds voting for him. Liberal pundits lamented the supposed rightward shift among young people, but as always, the liberals can only see the surface appearance of things. The reality is that, as with most Trump voters across all age groups, this was primarily a vote against the disastrous Biden-Harris government, a protest signifying that anything and everything would be better than the status quo. The Democrats had held the presidency during 12 of the previous 16 years of capitalist crisis. The vast majority of young people who swung towards Trump did so not because they are rabid right-wing ideologues, but because of economic hardship. After analyzing the election results and their own polling, the Associated Press wrote at the time, Trump's younger voters were motivated by the economy more than by immigrants, were broadly concerned about climate change, and wanted more government involvement in healthcare and canceling student loan debt. Trump won more young voters, but many don't agree with him on issues. Before throwing away a broken TV, many people will give it an open-handed whack to see if that somehow fixes the problem. That was the attitude of millions of young people when they voted for Trump. But Trump's first 6 months in office have rapidly dispelled illusions in his promise of a new golden age. As Newsweek explained this month, Trump's net rating among Gen Z voters has deteriorated sharply, falling from 23 points in May to 41 points in June. Adding that this discontent does not appear to be translating into strong support for Democrats. Zohran Mamdani. Some have concluded that young people have become nihilistic and uninterested in politics, but in rare instances where young people have something to fight for, not just something to vote against, the real situation becomes clear. Nearly all the polls had the establishment pick Andrew Cuomo, leading in the last month's Democratic mayoral primary in New York. But Zohran Mamdani's call for freezing rent, providing free buses, and more landed particularly well with young people across the 5 boroughs. The result was an astonishing victory for the self-described socialist. As a spokesperson for Cuomo told the New York Times, the Cuomo campaign met most of its turnout goals, but had not foreseen Mamdani's ability to expand the electorate in such a way that no turnout model or poll was able to capture. In fact, voters aged 25 to 34 had largest turnout of any age group, an extremely rare thing in the usually uninspiring world of bourgeois politics. Zohran also won 30% of the districts Trump won in 2024 general election, with a substantial number of working-class New Yorkers reporting that they had voted for both Trump and Mamdani. Zohran's victory in the Democratic mayoral primary shows beyond doubt that young people are looking, above all, for candidates who challenge the status quo, moreover, wherever they might be found. Unfortunately, for those with honest illusions, there is a reason the Democratic Party is known as the gravedigger of progressive movements. Maybe Zohran should run for president. Build a communist party. In short, capitalism is in a profound crisis, and young people are increasingly open to the ideas of revolutionary communism. The youth have always been the layer of the working class that feels the crisis of capitalism most acutely. They understand the horrors of the future that lie in store for them unless capitalism is overthrown. As Lenin explained, paraphrasing Engels, is it not natural that youth should predominate in our party, the Revolutionary Party? We are the party of the future, and the future belongs to the youth. We are a party of innovators, and it is always the youth that most eagerly follows the innovators. We are a party that is waging a self-sacrificing struggle against the old rottenness, and youth is always the first to undertake a self-sacrificing struggle. Across the country, millions of young people are burning with rage at the capitalist system and are desperately searching for a way to fight against it. The comrades of the RCA must continue to recruit boldly and widely among the radicalized youth, who are the future of our party and humanity as a whole. We have a revolutionary duty to seize this opportunity with both hands. This is the generation of class fighters that history is forging. Our future comrades are out there, and the revolutionary process in the United States is maturing. If we stay grounded in the idea of Marxism and continue to build our party with a sense of urgency, we will succeed. We will overthrow the cancerous rot of world capitalism in our lifetime. Why I want to join. I want to join because I am sick and tired of the tyranny the rich have blanketed over us. I'm tired knowing that I will have to work with no given end just to barely accumulate half as much as my neighbors who were simply born into more fortunate circumstances. And alongside that, I'm tired of working myself to the brink of death, all just not to be able to pay the bills on time and get dinner on the table. I'm tired of not being able to afford health insurance. I'm tired of seeing my friends and family get put down by the same hands that are said to protect. I'm tired because we are more powerful than the ones we oppose, but we have been blinded for so long that it's too hard for most to see a way out. We need change. We need to break free from this system we are all oppressed under until none of us are. That's from Kansas City. Another person in Seattle said, I believe wholeheartedly that this movement has great potential to push society into greater prospects and give light to the threats and atrocities that capitalism and imperialism pose to the working class around the globe. I want to be part of that movement and help it grow to greater heights. From the Bay Area, humanity deserves so much better than to be cannon fodder for the profits of the few. From Chicago, I hate this capitalist hellscape. Having been a communist for a long time and have been looking for an organization to join, but just haven't found one until now due to long hours at my union job. From San Diego, whether it be in my lifetime or not, I would like to contribute my time and labor towards organizing the working class so that one day an international workers' state can be achieved. From Boston, I want to join because I want to help the working class develop class consciousness to overthrow the bourgeoisie and develop their own working class party. And from New York, I want to dedicate my life to the revolution. So I'll stop there. I'll read some more articles from this newspaper at another time. Please like, share, and subscribe. Join your local activist organization. I was just reading from the Revolutionary Communists of America newspaper called The Communist, and I am a member of the Freedom Road Socialist Organization, a local group called Tallahassee Community Action Committee, and I'm a combat veteran of the YPG International Volunteers, and I defended the Rojava Revolution and fought against ISIS from 2018 to 2019. So look for your local organizations, get out there, fight against ICE, fight against genocide in Gaza, fight against capitalism, fight against the rich, and figure out how we can come together to overthrow them.